Okay, hi. So I'm going to talk about the fire element today. Let me light my incense and I'm going to light some Palo Santo and then I'm going to talk about the fire element and how it relates to astrology, fire, but then also how it relates to the tarot. So I'm going to go through the whole wand suit and talk about what it means and just what I've learned about the fire element. I'm going to light some Palo Santo too, just to get the energy correct. So if you're new to astrology, like don't really know much about it at all, only maybe know your sun sign or whatever, this will be like 101 for you. And I'm going to do it with every sign, with every element. But if you already are into astrology and know about it, then you'll probably already know these things. And the beauty of astrology for me is that it literally can unlock your whole life. It can unlock your understanding of yourself, but then also like the universal themes of what you see outside of you. And there's a saying, as above, so below. As above, so below. And then as, I don't know, maybe as within, so without. And so the idea is like, if it's happening inside of you, it also will reflect outward. And then if it's happening above, like in the spiritual realm, then it's also going to show up in the physical realm, right? So as above, so below, as within, so without. I don't know if as within, so without is actually a saying or not, but it makes sense to me. So when you understand like the universal themes of all four elements, everything can apply to one of those four elements. And then it helps you understand, like it just unlocks a whole world. It's like so fascinating to me. And so, I just really wanted to talk about that. Also, it can kind of show you, like, let's say you're a fire sign, right? How does fire work with the other elements? That can be a representation of how you yourself work with the other elements, whether it be literally like in the 3D realm. Do you enjoy being around a warm fire? Maybe, but also how do you work with other signs, right? Fire and water, like they're very different. How do they work together? Earth and fire, how do they work together? How does it show up outside of you? And then so also, how does it show up within you? So I'm going to talk about the fire element first. So the three fire signs that you probably already know: Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So those are the three fire signs. And the fire element is representing like the igniting of passion. Literally, like, think the lighting of fire, right? Like, this is the Ace of Wands, the initial spark of passion, of energy. And that represents fire signs. If you know a fire sign, you may know them to be fiery, passionate, energetic, right? Full of energy. And so that represents the fire element. So you might see that in yourself. And then it'll show up in different ways depending on the sign. Aries is kind of like this, right? The initial spark. whereas Leo is more of a continuous, like, fire. And I kind of, there's some more to it. I feel like there's so many things to describe, but I got to stay on track. It's a lot to describe. So, right, if Aries is like the initial spark, Leo is like a, I'm trying to think of a way to describe it, like a warm, I almost want to say fire, continuous fire, like active fire. You know what I mean? And then Sagittarius is more of a mutable fire. So I would say Sagittarius would be more of like a house fire, right? You can add more logs into it to make the fire bigger. You can, dampen the fire to make it less hot. That's the energy of Sagittarius, right? So work with me. You may get it or you may not. It takes time. And also something I've kind of realized about astrology is it's kind of like, I almost feel like in past lives, I believe in past lives. And the thought of past lives helps me kind of understand who I am in this life. So I almost feel like it's like if you've learned it before in a past life, you remember it in your present life. So it's like it's already something you have in your back pocket. So when you learn it, you're like, I remember that. Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense, of course. Compared to, if you have never, ever, ever, if it's completely new to you, then it may be a different experience when you're learning it the first time. But I feel like it's like if you already have that power pack, the astrology power pack, it just unlocks. And you're like, that makes so much sense. So, yeah. Okay. So the fire element can also apply to different parts of your body because, mind you, you can apply it to anything, right? Like everything that exists is made up of one of the elements or more of the elements working together. So each body part is ruled by a sign, therefore ruled by an element as well. So Aries rules the head, then Leo rules the heart, and Sagittarius rules the thighs. So, the element of fire can pertain to those parts of your body as well. And then we have in the tarot deck. So hold on. I'm going to go through each one, right? And so with the tarot, you have like 4 suits, which represent all 4 elements. And then each card, 1 through 10, represents the process of fire in a way, like the movement from the first spark of fire all the way to like the completion of fire, if that makes sense. So let me describe that now. And then also those astrology signs pertain to the cards also. So it's like it's magical. Like I'm telling you, when you unlock it, everything you see, you can apply it. And like it's a whole like mental unlock. So the Ace of Wands in the tarot deck, this can represent a fresh start, starting up something new. So a new idea, want a passionate new job that you want to try, It can represent a passionate new beginning with someone, wanting to reach out to someone, right? It can represent literally lighting a match, actually, which is so crazy. Sometimes with the tarot, like, it can mean so many different things, like the basic meanings of the cards don't always necessarily mean exactly that. It can mean so many different things. It can mean the spark of a forest fire, when a fire starts, that first initial thing, that however the brush rubs together that gets it to start, that can represent from an Ace of Wands, right? So then we have the Two of Wands, which is, this honestly could also represent like the growth of a forest fire, like rubbing two sticks together, kind of. This could also be like a intuitive push to do something, also. So you have that. Then this in the tarot deck, I believe, and mind you, also astrology is one of those things where you're learning always, always, always. Like, is really no pressure. Like, I think there are some, I don't know if you can, I've heard that some folks really, there are ways that you can study it in school. I have not, I've heard of people who have studied and like are astrology scholars, you know what I mean? But I don't think that wisdom is easily available to everyone. So, it's like getting where you fit in, learn as you go. Like, these are just the things that are really interesting to me and help me. But I think there are astrologers that have all the wisdom and have studied. Like, it's a whole thing. It's but getting where you fit in. Like, don't feel bad if you don't. Learn as you go. It's a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong understanding, and that's what's cool about it. So what was I saying? Yes. Okay, so this is kind of like planning, the planning of an idea to head in a certain direction. Taking this, then putting it together with this to like start your fire, to start the passion, to start things, move things in a certain direction, right? To get things going, to get that energy going. So planning, manifesting, right? This is what I'm headed towards. This is what I want. This is what makes me passionate. I want to move in this direction. So like building on this. Then you have the Three of Wands. In the classic tarot deck, this is like your ships coming in. I think it's a person standing on a kind of like in the sand, waiting for their ship to come in. So it's an idea of expansion. Like, after this, this, then it's this. So it's like expanding outwards, and then you start to see the fruits of the labor that you're putting in, or more so like the effects of what you're manifesting. It's expanding. You're pulling it in. The ship is coming into you. So what you're manifesting is on its way to you. You're waiting for the ship. It also makes me think, there's been a lot of theme of Pocahontas lately for me. I don't know why, but I'm thinking of Pocahontas just around the river bend, when she's like, dreaming, wishing for something, like wanting something, um, seeing something beyond the horizon for her. And then literally the ships come in, and it's, all those white men on there. You know what I mean? And so something was manifesting. and she could feel it, right? Regardless of how good or bad it was, right? Then you have the Four of Wands, which represents like community or like the gathering. It can represent a celebration. You know what I mean? Everybody coming together in a way, family, like community group of people, kind of. Which could, if you're thinking about Pocahontas, if I were to use her as a theme for this, I feel like that honestly could work for like the first few cards. This would be like when all of the men get off the boat and like everyone is coming together, kind of, in a way. This can also represent, but this can also represent like a kind of like a sexual union. It can come out as that. It can come out as a wedding. It can come out, right, a celebration of some kind. So that's the Four of Wands. Then the Five of Wands. So this, I know this to be competition, rivalry, but not always necessarily dangerous as much as just like head to head, like versus, more so like, or I think this and you think this. So I want to go this way, you want to go this way. What are we going to do? Who's going to choose what? Like, I disagree, you agree. Just like your everyday, really, we know it very well. Like, I see this card so often. It can even be in your own mind, right? Like the battle in your own mind of like, I want to do this. Well, now I want to do this. Like, or the competition that you create in your own mind, even if nobody is there. So when you see this card, and this is all the fire element, like the energy inside you of like push and pull, So that's the Five of Wands. I've seen some Five of Wands cards where it's like five people holding a wand, like five different people holding one wand and they're all like waving it, and very like I can even think of this as a dance competition. If you see those, like a break dancing competition where it's like one person goes and the other person goes, that could be a good representation of this. And then the Six of Wands would be like whoever wins the dance competition and then they get celebrated, because the Six of Wands is like a public victory, right? So after this, someone's going to take the cake. Someone's going to win. Someone's idea is going to win. And then that represents the Six of Wands. So like victory celebration, like someone is being raised publicly to be revered as something, right? The winner, the success. Yeah, like public success. And everything that comes with that, though, right? Like it could be in reverse and it could represent like you self-doubt or being publicly kind of humiliated or publicly punished, right? And one of the cards I have, it's a man on a horse and he's holding like a flag or something and everyone's following behind him. And then the horse is looking back at him like this. Like, if this man don't get off my fucking back, bro, like, and that's the energy. Like with this, there's always going to be the person who lost this, who might have an attitude. You know what I mean? Like all of that plays into it. So after the Six of Wands, then we have the Seven of Wands. So after you have that victory, it's not like there's not more to do. It's not like now you don't have to defend your place, right? Like how many times have you experienced that? You win and then it's like, now I have more to do, or here comes somebody trying to take me off my throne. That's the Seven of Wands. And like, it really means defending your beliefs You know what I mean? Fighting for what you want, pushing that fire forward. But that's a one way to think about it, of like somebody, now you have to continue, like you have the success, but you now have to continue to move forward. And it can mean many, many things. But I'm just trying to describe kind of like the energy of fire and how it develops, and then also through the tarot deck, how it develops, right? So then after the defending of the beliefs, then you have the Eight of Wands. And this can represent rapid action. So, it could be a fight breaking out. It could be literally a lightning strike. It could just be everything is going on so quickly. So you have all of this, like, all these things to do, like it honestly makes me think of right before the end of the school year, right before you have, like, let's say you're getting ready to graduate high school. And it's that time right before, like not exactly before where they start signing everybody out, but before that, where everyone has to make up their homework and like, like you have all this stuff to do because you're preparing to graduate, right? And maybe there's some stuff that you left behind and now you have to go ahead and do those projects and turn them in before, because you forgot. Like that was my experience. I had a lot of like stuff behind a little bit. So I had all this pile up to do. I had to move quick, right? So that's a representative moving quick, like quick action, fast action, and that can represent many, many things. Driving fast on the road, like um just rapid action. That's what I'll say. And so then after that rapid action, you have the Nine of Wands. Now I can't find my Nine of Wands card. I lost it. But the Nine of Wands is the exhaustion that comes after the rapid action. So after you do all that homework, right? It's like you would think it would stop here, but it doesn't. It doesn't stop here. Then you have the Nine of Wands. Then it's your last stretch. Then you're tired and you still have to continue, right? So then after you do all the homework and you're ready to be done and you still have 2 weeks of school left, and now you got to go be signed out, and now there's a teacher you're worried about, they might not sign you out, you know what I mean? And you're worried that like if they don't sign me out, I don't know what's the grade is going to be. I'm trying to get over a 3.0, right? Like that's, at least that was my experience, like, you know what I mean? The Nine of Wands, so like the last stretch, it can represent exhaustion, pushing, that final push, and everything that comes with that. It can be fatigue. It can represent fatigue. If it comes out in reverse, it can represent burnout, like college burnout. If it comes out in reverse, the exhaustion of just like, I'm done with this, emotional exhaustion, energetic exhaustion, but still pushing, striving for that goal. And then we move to the Ten of Wands, which is really the completion. So the accomplishment, you graduated, whatever you did, you completed it. So it's kind of like being able to finally lay your wands down because you completed it, achieved it. It can also represent, it can represent an overexertion of energy too, if it comes out in reverse, or like still trying to keep going when it's time to lay it to rest. That's something I've recently learned about this. Like you've already achieved, but you're having a problem letting it go, or letting somebody else take it from there. Like you've done all you can do, but you're still in the energy of pushing. That can represent that as well. But upright, it's kind of like the achievement, the revere, the completion, you know? And that could be, and think of completion literally in like many, many different ways. It can represent that with this card. So that's like the 1 through 10 of the fire element in this tarot deck, in the tarot. Then you have your court cards, the Page of Wands, the Knight of Wands, the Queen of Wands, and the King of Wands. And the court cards, right? So the Knight of Wands, the Queen of Wands, and the King of Wands can represent people. So if you see the King of Wands, it can represent a man or a masculine energy that may be an Aries, Leo, Sag, or it's just in the fire energy. So, achieving in some way can represent an attractive man, right? Fire can also represent attraction, sexuality, hotness, right? So often the King of Wands can represent that. King of Wands in reverse can represent somebody who uses their, sexual energy in an over abrasive way, or it's just over abrasive naturally, can be the King of Wands in reverse. So also that goes with the Queen of Wands, right? It can represent like a powerful woman, a fiery woman, a passionate woman, a bitchy woman, you know what I mean? Or just a Aries, Leo, Sag woman. I notice it's interesting that in some decks, they'll portray the wand suit as Black people. Like, I do notice that as a theme, not always, but I have noticed that in certain decks, they'll do that. And I guess, that could represent many different things, like even just the fire element of living, of like Black people living in a hot climate usually, right? Or like from a hot climate, right? Not that only in a hot climate, but that Africa is like the native place of Black people. And that would represent the fire element literally. And so I don't know, it just kind of makes sense in a way that it would be portrayed that way. So same thing with that, this can be together like a hot couple, a popular, attractive couple. And then you have the Knight of Wands. And, if there's a king and a queen that are revered on a certain level, then you have the Knight. And the Knight is like this can be seen as an action taker, the knight in shining armor, someone going, on the horse, running to go pick something up, go do something. It can represent someone who just is there for the sex, right? Compared to like someone who, a King of Wands could be that too, I think. But this is kind of like the action, someone who like is just kind of reckless in reverse, especially, but kind of just like the action taker, like the knight, the knight on the horse. Think of like a fast moving knight on the horse. Different than the Knight of Swords, which is like the air element, which I'll talk about in a different one. But just think like night energy, not fully in the king energy yet. But this can also represent a feminine too. So yeah. And then the pages. Now the pages to me, excuse me, the pages in the deck are always confusing to me. Always. Like, I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I think there's what's the word I want to use? I don't even want to say elusive. That's not what I mean, but kind of like communicative. Like this could represent it's kind of like it's in and out, it's around, like it can represent an exciting kind of like an immaturity, like it may or may not follow through. That's the page. So this could be like, oh, I'm gonna reach out, I want to reach out, like I plan to and then it didn't really go through, or like a little like kind of like a boop, a little, if that makes sense, within the element, right? So it could represent like a very young, passionate person. Literally, like the pages can represent young people, like children, like it could represent just like a energetic child or something like that, but also communication. Like I just saw in my mind's eye somebody like shouting across the street at you or something. That's just what I saw. Like that's a way to think about it. Or a t- I want to say a text message, like a passionate text message or something, like a long passionate text message or something like that. Maybe not even a long one, but like, hey, it's been a long time. How have you been? Text message might represent something like that. And so those are the court cards, and that is the fire element in the tarot deck. And now I just want to see if I got through everything that I wanted to say there. Oh, also, how I was saying with the how Aries rules the head, Leo rules the heart, Sag rules the thighs. Those are all places where you feel heat, right? Where like heat circulates, right? Like, or heat like keeps runs through, if that makes sense. Which is something I was thinking of also that I wanted to mention. But yeah. Or where action takes place. You have the brain, right? Like a lot of heat and action in the brain. And what can happen if it's overactive? Headaches, overexertion, right? Like dehydration and stuff like that. So that can represent the headspace, or like overthinking things. So it's kind of like an overusing of that fire energy. Or you have your heart space, right? It's continuously beating. It has to continue. That's that fire energy of like literally Leo is beating, it's beating, it's beating. It's going, it's going. It's continuous until it's done for good. It's going to always go. And that's Leo energy. And then Sag on the thighs. I guess the thighs kind of represent like your like it holds, they don't hold, I'm not going to say they hold you up, but it's like, what are the thighs? I'm trying to think. Like I just heard protector. I don't know why I heard protector. Like, I guess for feminines, the thighs are like in a way of a protector, but also like, I'm trying to just think how to describe what I'm thinking with that. The thighs and how heat carries in the thighs. You know what I mean? I feel like you get what I'm saying. Like it's just like heat carries in the thighs, like strong thighs, right? And then if you've ever seen a centaur, which I believe is what I'm about to just look it up really quick. So this for a Sagittarius, yes. I wish I could show y'all this, but I cannot. Sagittarius, the sign of Sagittarius, its symbol is a centaur, which is half man, half horse. And so it's like the strong thigh. You know what I mean? Strong thigh. Like that energy of like strong thighs. I don't know. That's just the best way for me to describe it. I feel like there's more I definitely could say for sure, but that's just what I want to say. Like, just think of the heat of the thigh and apply it however you would like to apply it. So, yeah. I don't want to say too much because then if I start going into the houses, the astrology houses, it'll just be too much for this reading or this little lesson. So I'll do that later. But yeah, that's the fire element. So I hope that that helped you. If you're a fire sign, that can help you understand yourself a little bit, the way you might work. Also, depending on whether you're a sun sign, a sun fire sign, a moon fire sign, like where do you have fire in your chart? Are you a Leo sun? Like that matters too. But even that, I don't think I'm going to go into right now. So yeah, all right, y'all. That's the fire element. Hope that helped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.